Chapter 30. Even plants from the same crop can have variations in strength. I suspect that most people who buy their dope through New Zealand's cannabis economy have no idea where it has actually originated from, how many hands it has passed through, and what, if anything, has been done to it to increase its potency or increase profit margins. Generally speaking, cannabis grown in New Zealand today has been hybridised into a much stronger drug than it was in the past. The more dope I smoked, the more my tolerance built, the more I needed to get the desired effect. Following this progression, always seeking out the strongest dope I could find, the more likely it became that I would experience an increase in the drug's negative effects. That's just how drugs work. It is not just the physical body, especially the lungs and the brain, that are affected by heavy cannabis use. The effect on who we are as people, our attitudes and how we see the world, and how we behave and interact with others is a big part of cannabis addiction. Addiction is characterised by the twin components of obsession and compulsion. The mental obsession describes the process by which our thinking becomes primarily focused on drugs, the getting and using of the drugs, and the maintenance of the supply. The compulsion goes hand in hand with this. It is the act of having to use, that once the thought of the drug enters our heads, we are compelled to follow it through to using, even if we don't want to. The cycles of obsession and compulsion drive us around. It is insane. A significant physical health issue for people with mental illnesses, albeit in the too hard basket, is cigarette and tobacco smoking. As anyone who has been to a psychiatric hospital can testify, people smoke more than ever when they're sitting around waiting for nothing much to happen. Indeed, Rata Villa was the last outpost to build a smoking room for patients, just as all the other health facilities were outlawing them. And at the time I appreciated it, I really did. There is a certain irony to the fact that some of the most ardently opposed to the harms of psychiatric medication smoke like chimneys. In hindsight, having so far managed to quit tobacco, I wonder whether acceptance and tolerance of smoking is just another passive permission to kill ourselves. Understandably, during an acute psychiatric crisis is not the time to address such issues. However, there is a place for smoking cessation support amongst this demographic. I wouldn't have wanted it in my acutely unwell phase, but people get there in their own time. It now seems discriminatory to me to ignore this high-using group of people when most other at-risk groups have been targeted by the National Quit Smoking campaign. Many of us have sampled alternative as well as mainstream therapies in our attempts to find ways to understand and alleviate our physical and psychic discomfort and suffering. Aside from the usual assortment of counsellors, psychologists, psychiatrists and social workers, I have visited practitioners specialising in Reiki, holistic pulsing, spiritualist healing, Buddhist meditational healing, physiotherapy, yoga, magnets, crystals, aromatherapy, massage, neurolink, acupressure, acupuncture, Chinese herbalism, naturopathy, homeopathy, and possibly others that have slipped my mind. My conclusion based on these experiences is that all forms of either mainstream or alternative medicine, healing and therapy need to be treated with caution, especially if a person has significant symptoms of mental illness. Sometimes the only relief that occurs is that of the money in one's purse. Sometimes alternative therapies actually work too well. This was my experience of being treated with naturopathy using the quaintly named bark flower remedies. In the early days of my depression, a friend suggested I visit a naturopath who was becoming popular among the worried well, a term used in psychotherapy circles to describe people who do not have a diagnosable illness but seek help for managing transient rough patches in their lives and are otherwise well. I was having a lot of trouble with neck pain and I wasn't happy in myself, so I decided to give it a try. I went a few times with an open mind, and the naturopath's assessment was that I had a lot of blocked emotions in my body that were the underlying cause of the physical pain in my neck and shoulders. She explained that these were the areas in my body where I stored emotional stress. She practiced a version of cranial sacral therapy, which involved moving my head gently in all directions in order to both loosen the neck muscles and to aid the passage to the surface of the trapped emotions. It made me feel seasick. In addition to this, she prepared bark flower remedies, which I was to take 3 times a day to assist with the emotional unblocking. She felt there was a need for some urgency in this matter, so she increased the potency of the preparations. To be honest, I was sceptical. I hadn't thought through what I expected to happen. I hadn't got any further than just assuming I would start to feel better if the remedies were working. I didn't know anything about naturopathic medicine, and the name bark flowers conjured up images of an orchestra playing a fugue whilst a lady in a flowing white gown strolled round a country cottage garden somewhere. And the naturopath seemed nice, she was kindly, and it all appeared fairly harmless. I had been on this regime for about 3 weeks when the first lot of sexual abuse memories exploded to the surface. Make of that what you will. I guess something unblocked. Andrew and I tried vitamin therapy once, at great expense. The practitioner also doubled as the local pyramid seller for the expensive range of vitamins which he peddled in tandem with the consultation. At around $50 to $70 a bottle, he determined after a brief one-off session that each of us needed about 4 different bottles of vitamin and mineral preparations to sort us out. Note to self. A. Taking vitamins does not cure schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, no matter how many you take, how special and unique the particular brand, or how much you spend. And B. Watch out for charlatans. They come in all guises. They do their best work when they sense desperation in the air. At least lithium, despite its faults, has a documented record of doing its job, and in New Zealand it is subsidised by the government's drug funding agency, Pharmac, so it is inexpensive. I calculate that over the 14 years that I took lithium at the dose of 1,000 milligrams per day, I ingested approximately 5.11 kilograms of the stuff, eek, which cost me the grand total of $504. That's $36 a year or $3 a month. I'm still here, a bit roughed up in the kidneys, it's true, but basically still here. I think the vitamin man went broke, and Andrew died, but not of calcium deficiency or a lack of vitamin C.